Idi Amin Dada, a dictator whose name still sends shockwave across Africa and the world. Known for brutality, political terror, and mass killings, his regime also carried a darker, less spoken truth. Hidden beneath the chaos were disturbing patterns of sexual abuse, coercion, and love-related crimes that affected women, families, and entire communities in Uganda during the 1970s. Today, we reveal the shadowed side of Amin's rule, stories often buried, silenced, or forgotten. When Idi Amin took power in 1971 through a military coup, Uganda transformed overnight into a nation ruled by military intimidation. Fear became part of everyday life. Soldiers patrolled the streets, political opponents disappeared, and citizens learned never to question authority. But behind closed doors, this climate of fear enabled personal abuse. With unchecked power, Amin and loyal soldiers exploited vulnerable women, often without consequence. Human rights groups later documented many accounts involving forced relationships, coerced marriages, and intimidation of families who had no power to resist. Amin's own love life reflected the chaos of his rule. He had multiple wives, often under questionable circumstances. Some of these marriages reportedly involved pressure, manipulation, or fear, especially when young women were involved. His relationships rarely ended peacefully. Former partners were monitored, threatened, or, in some tragic cases, harmed when they attempted to leave him. Behind the public image of a charismatic strongman was a man obsessed with controlling the women in his life, often using the power of the state to do so. Multiple testimonies from survivors and witnesses described soldiers abducting women for the president's entertainment. Families were too terrified to intervene. Many victims never came forward. Fear alone was a powerful weapon. Reports describe soldiers visiting schools, colleges, and public events, selecting young women for Amin's attention. Those who refused risked punishment, and their families risked retaliation. These crimes created a culture of silent suffering, where trauma became part of Uganda's forgotten history. It wasn't just strangers who suffered. Women who dated or married Amin often faced terrible consequences if they defied him. Some accounts mention mysterious disappearances, violent intimidation, and state-controlled surveillance. Love itself wasn't safe. A breakup could become a death sentence. Women associated with Amin had their lives intertwined with political power, a dangerous position no one could escape safely. Amin's soldiers, known for their ruthlessness, also contributed to widespread sexual crimes during the regime. With absolute power and no accountability, many used their authority to intimidate or dominate women. Fear of soldiers became part of daily life. Many families hid young girls. Women avoided walking alone. And countless victims carried their stories silently, fearing retaliation even after Amin's fall. These crimes weren't just individual acts. They were part of a system of oppression created by authoritarian rule. The emotional and psychological impact of these abuses still lingers. Victims struggled with trauma, shattered trust, and lost family members. Communities were left broken. For decades, many survivors were too afraid or ashamed to speak publicly about what happened. The legacy of Amin's sexual and love-related crimes remains a painful chapter in Uganda's history, one that continues to shape discussions about human rights and justice. Amin's regime collapsed in 1979 after war with Tanzania. But even after he fled, many of the crimes he committed or allowed were never fully investigated. Documents disappeared. Witnesses feared for their lives. And many of the stories, especially involving sexual crimes, were overshadowed by the larger political violence of his rule. But historians and survivors continue to piece together the truth, ensuring these stories are not erased. Idi Amin's rule was one of Africa's darkest periods. Behind the public brutality were deeply personal crimes that shattered countless lives. By acknowledging these hidden stories, we honor the victims and ensure history never repeats itself. If you found this documentary valuable, remember to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more African history documentaries on love crimes.